Hey everyone, this week I've got the keys to this 2020 Cadillac XT6. This is Cadillac's new three-row family crossover, and there's a lot to unpack here. As you probably know, Cadillac has been in the midst of an identity crisis for really the last few decades, and the XT6 is frankly yet another example of that. Big picture, recently, Cadillac had introduced an all-new Omega platform that was to underpin a series of large rear-wheel drive sedans and eventually crossovers. But the only vehicle that actually was built on that platform before the platform was canceled was the Ct6. That was a full-size rear-wheel drive premium luxury sedan, or at least it was meant to be, in the vein of the BMW 7 Series, Mercedes-Benz S-Class, Audi A8, and it looked like eventually that vehicle could compete with the Germans. But for a series of strange reasons, General Motors opted to discontinue that platform. And generally when an automaker introduces a new platform, they plan for it to underpin a number of vehicles. And the plan for the Omega platform was for, in addition to the CT6, it was to underpin the Escala, which was a swoopy, coupe-like sedan that was only ever introduced in concept form before it was canceled. And then it was also going to underpin a three-row family crossover. I guess General Motors saw the writing on the wall with sedans, and suddenly, given the declining sedan market, the Omega platform project no longer was going to be profitable for General Motors, so they canceled it. And as a result of that, the CT6 that you see here, while it was going to be based on a unique to Cadillac, premium feeling rear-wheel drive platform, instead they kind of quickly scrapped together this vehicle, and it rides on the same platform that underpins like the Buick Enclave, the Chevy Traverse, GMC Acadia, Chevy Blazer, Cadillac XT5, you know those vehicles. So kind of a weird thing here. The car, it's I hate to say it, but kind of lacking with regard to the premium feel that I guess you might expect from Cadillac. Its main competitor is probably the Lincoln Aviator, which early reviews say is an exceptional vehicle. I've yet to drive it, but my feelings toward the XT6 here are but either way, let's do a little tour of this vehicle, inside out, take it for a little drive, and then I will share with you more of my thoughts. So the XT6 is all new for 2020. It's a fairly modern, brand new design. It isn't quite the head turner that you might have wanted for Cadillac in this segment. Lines are clean, a lot of geometric shapes in there. I think the proportions are good. It just doesn't wow you like you want from Cadillac. It has the same proportions as General Motors' other family crossovers. They actually make three different sizes of crossover. On the small side is the Cadillac XT5, Chevy Blazer, and GMC Acadia. Mid-size consists of this vehicle, the Cadillac XT6, and the Buick Enclave, and then technically full size is the Chevy Traverse. So the Traverse is a little bit bigger than the XT6 here in the Enclave. Around the back you can see Cadillac's new super confusing naming structure. This one has a 400 badge, which I think means that if you were to look at the torque output of this engine in Newton meters, which is the way it's measured in Europe, and then round that number up, it would come out to 400. Really doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe it will in a few years, but right now it just doesn't really hit for many people. Here's the Xt6 badge. Something I didn't notice: XT are not italicized, while the 6 is italicized. This is an all-wheel drive model, but General Motors handles all-wheel drive with these crossovers in a really unfortunate way, I think, which I'll get into in a little bit. The design isn't bad. I think if you were to look at this in an academic sense, it uses good design From a marketing and product standpoint though, it just isn't what people are looking for. It doesn't strike you as a premium luxury vehicle, rather it just kind of looks generic. I do like the headlights on this thing. They're pretty narrow without looking bizarre. Let's take a look at the window sticker before we get deeper here. Alright, so here's the Monroney label, and let's just get this out of the way first. One of my biggest issues with this car is the fact that GM thinks it's worth close to $72,000. And I'm going to show you numerous reasons why it is not worth that much money. But you can see this is an Xt6 premium luxury all-wheel drive. There's also a sport model that gets slightly more aggressive styling and black elements, where this one has chrome. It's pretty much loaded, so you can see it uses a 3.6 liter V6. Did they include that on here? Yeah, it's GM's ubiquitous 3.6 liter V6. There you go. Paired with a 9-speed automatic transmission. Satin steel metallic on the exterior, jet black interior, and it's very, very much jet black in here. Fuel economy is fine, I guess. 17 city, 24 highway, 20 mpg combined. Base price for this thing is $55,000. So this one's got about $17,000 worth of options, which we'll go over here. But yeah, altogether, on paper, I guess you can see how this total MSRP would get up to $72,000, but just in practice, this is not a $72,000 car. This feels like a slightly nicer version of an Acadia or an Enclave. Let's start with the cargo area. There we go. Power liftgate. Decent space back here. The seats fold completely flat, which is nice. And then you get power up and down for them here. So let's put up the left seat. So that locks in place there, and then you just pop up the headrest. Little storage behind, so it's nice to see that you do preserve some of your rear cargo space when the third row is in place. Kind of nice that the cover here stays up without me having to hold it up. It's a clever touch. Little storage cubby on the side here. Some tie downs right here. Looks like no provisions in place for a rear cargo cover. That's kind of odd. Put the seat back down. Goes down pretty easily. I'll put it back up though so that I can hop back there. Let's put up the right seat. Ooh, didn't like that. Let's put up the right seat. And then once we move on to the interior, I can hop back there and show you how much space there is in the third row. Power tailgate, but again, here we start to get into some of the reasons why this isn't a $71,000 car, and that's one of them. This is just hard plastic. This is a fairly new model. I think it has fewer than 5,000 miles on it, meaning this example is really new. But the plastic, it's just really greasy. It doesn't feel premium. I really wish I've driven more of the competition for this vehicle. Have driven the Acura MDX, and I can tell you that, yeah, this is cheap. Yeah, my fingers are greasy. Tailgate opens and closes relatively quickly, I guess you could say. Door handles. Door handles are kind of interesting. You've got a button. I like to see just built-in touch sensitivity, but this one uses a button. And then this is like a clear plastic piece. I'm not sure. Here's the key. Let's see. Do these light up or anything? Doesn't look like it. Kind of weird that GM still uses these knob style door locks. It seems like they should have gotten away from that about 15 or 20 years ago. But anyway, keys in my pocket. So there you go. Button for locking, unlocking. And none of it's touch sensitive. It's just the button. So a lot of cars will use like a touch sensitive pad here for locking them, and then sensitive inside of the door handle here that unlocks the car. This one, again, just activated via this button. It works, it's simple, but again, it strikes me as prioritization of cost cutting over technology and product, which is kind of GM's whole thing. Moving inside here, and yeah, this is where things just kind of further break down for me in terms of this supposedly being a $71,000 vehicle, because this is just not a $71,000 car interior. Go ahead and turn it on. Infotainment system is pretty good. GM is known for decent infotainment setups. I know Cadillac's Q system was kind of a misstep a few years back, but I find this one to be pretty easy to use. I imagine it's a reskinned version of the infotainment that you get in all of GM's other vehicles, and yeah, it's good. That's one area that I don't have much criticism at all when it comes to GM. Screen in the gauge cluster there, it's fairly big, displays a lot of information. These gauges on the sides here are still just basic mechanical gauges. Real carbon fiber in this thing, which is just weird. This isn't a sports car, not at all, and yet there's carbon fiber here. It seems like the cost of this carbon fiber could have been allocated elsewhere in this interior to make for an overall more impactful product. Center console feels really cheap. There's no other way to put it. This is hard plastic. Here's your rotary dial that controls some elements of the infotainment system. Not as cheap as the one in the Alfa Romeo Stelvio I tested, but still, you'd think it would have been a priority to engineer this wiggle out of the knob, given that this is an area that you're going to interact with a lot, and this is supposedly a Cadillac, or at least supposedly a high-end luxury vehicle. But nope, still fair bit of play in that. And then these buttons are just black plastic. Like, they could have made them rubber wrapped. They could have made them out of a different plastic. There's a lot that could have been done here to make this vehicle nicer. Shifter is this weird kind of like baby hand, baby forearm style shifter. So park is here. To take it out of gear, you have to press a button on the side of the shifter. So that's right here. See my thumb? And then pull it back. It goes back to center anytime you change gears, so you can't really use the positioning of the shifter to tell what gear you're in. You have to be able to see this right here, and you can see it kind of glares. The sun catches it because they decided to use gloss black here. And it's a lot of cars are going to these kind of shifters, and it seems to be just the way of the future, but I don't really love it. I think there's a better way to execute this right here. Cover over your cup holders that, again, it just doesn't feel premium. It's plastic on hard plastic, so you hear that? It's just not nice. And then this, I think, is real stitched leather, but at first glance it feels like molded plastic, which is kind of the opposite of what you want. You want to use molded plastic that feels like stitched leather, or molded rubber that feels like stitched leather. That's something Mazda does in their newer vehicles that really makes for a nice interior. This is stitched leather, so it's higher materials cost, higher labor cost, and I think the overall result is a lower quality feeling interior than in a lot of vehicles that just use molded rubber to look like stitched leather. So again, GM working against itself yet again. This cubby is weird. Kind of shallow, rolls up at the back. You could put a phone here, sunglasses, but it's going to kind of hang out. It's just not like sharp ergonomics in this thing. And then this whole center stack, it's just too bulky in places. Compare this interior to that of the Lincoln Aviator, and the Aviator is just hands down nicer, and it costs pretty much exactly the same as this vehicle. Wireless charging pad under the center console here. Little cubby. You do get USB-C, which is nice. I'm a big stickler for USB-C ports. You can see there are a lot of them scattered throughout the cabin of this vehicle. Here's a USB-A and a USB-C port. There are USB-C ports around back as well. Another weird thing I noticed, there are buttons back here that it's easier to tilt my phone around than it is my head, but while I'm driving, it's hard to see these buttons right here. I can see them when the wheel is turned, but when the wheel is at center, I can't really see them. So just some weird ergonomic stuff in here, and just Bose audio. Okay, Bose speakers are nice, and I like the grates. I think that has a premium feel to it right there. Panoramic sunroof, opens pretty wide. Headliner's nice. It's a suede material. I really like suede headliners. I think they go a long way in the cabin of a vehicle to make it feel premium. And again, the visors are wrapped in suede. They're kind of thin. Let's see, do these... Okay, so I like that functionality. But again, this just feels like GM parts bin right here. It's just, it's cheap. It's cheap. It's all really cheap feeling. Frameless rear view mirror, and it actually kind of mimics the shape of the Cadillac crest, which is kind of something fun that I just noticed. And yeah, I think that about covers. Let's just look at these. This is another kind of weird area. The heated seats and ventilated seat controls. It's nice that they get their own dedicated buttons, but they're kind of this weird flexy plastic. They're not touch sensitive. I think it's like a TFT screen where there's a button back there. I'm not sure what the screen would be called, but like there's a button back there, and this is just a flexible film. Yeah, it feels cheap. This vehicle is not a competitor. As much as GM wants it to be, it's not a competitor with BMW and Mercedes at all. It's quite clear as soon as you sit down inside. Okay, I think that about covers up front. Let's hop in the back and check out the second and third rows. Okay, in the second row, one thing you'll notice, kind of odd, I'm not sure if it's available with captain's chairs back here, but $71,000 luxury SUV doesn't have second row captain's chair, at least not in this example. Cup holder in the armrest here, again, $71,000. Not sure what that is. Again, everything is really greasy. I'm not sure in this case it could be leather cleaner that was used previously on the vehicle, but I think it's just the actual leather they use. Like, you hear that? Grease. Heated seats for the second row. Map pockets in each of the front seat backs. More of that carbon fiber trim back here. Bose speakers up in the door panel. Something else kind of weird. GM parts bin right here. White stitching in the door panels. You get more of that suede material. The suede headliner comes down nice and far. Air vents up there. Grab handles with a light. LED lighting. Let's hop in the third row, because that is one area in which this vehicle is pretty nice, pretty spacious back there. So there are buttons right here for, let's see what they do. Okay, so that puts the third row down. Yeah, so these would put the third row up and down, as do buttons located back in the cargo hold. To get there, slide this forward, and then we'll climb back. And now that we're back here, you can see decent amount of space for a third row in a 3-row crossover. This is definitely enough for most people. If you had, say, 4 kids or 3 kids and you planned on using the third row a lot, this is a third row that could be used every day. A lot of SUVs have third rows that are functional on occasion. In a pinch they work. This one, you could use it all the time. USB-C ports back here. One thing I noticed is they're set really far back in. It's hard to show, but yeah, they're just really far recessed. I have to think that little kids would end up scratching this panel as they try. And just look at this flex. Yeah, kind of underwhelming. And another thing I noticed on the note of interior quality, I can get my whole hand into this seat back here. See that? And then I could just, you can feel all the way back into there. Strange. Okay, I think that about does it. Let's climb back in the driver's seat and go for a little ride here. All right, one more thing. Credit where credit is due. I just remembered this massive storage space underneath the center console here. And I think this would quietly be one of my favorite features if I owned this vehicle. You could put a lot of things down there. Purse, water bottle, phone, wallet, keys, really anything. Nice little hidden storage compartment under the center console there. All right. Press shifter button. This baby hand shifter is really kind of strange to use. Okay, behind the wheel of the XT6, and there's really there are some things that are wrong with it actually from behind the wheel. I was gonna say that it's fine, and yeah, it's fine in a lot of ways, but my big gripe with this vehicle, or one of my gripes with this vehicle, and my big gripe with GM's modern SUVs is that they technically have all-wheel drive, but what GM does, and I think it's kind of slimy, these SUVs they default to two-wheel drive. They default to front-wheel drive. And if you want all-wheel drive, you have to flip a switch. And I imagine that GM does this because while every other automaker can achieve their desired fuel economy with full-time all-wheel drive, I guess General Motors, for whatever reason, can't. So they kind of do this weird trick where their cars default to front-wheel drive. And that's fine because you don't really need all-wheel drive that often. But what bugs me about that is that for your average driver, they might not realize that. So when it's rainy or snowy outside, they might not realize that they actually need to flip a switch, which is somewhere in this cabin. Flip a switch to put the car into all-wheel drive to get the benefits of all-wheel drive. And it's just weird. Nobody else does that. No other automaker needs to do that. And yet GM has this weird setup. And then it's just, I don't feel like you've earned the right to advertise your vehicle as offering all-wheel drive like everybody else when your vehicle needs to be flipped into all-wheel drive. Maybe that's a nitpick. I don't know. Another weird thing though is you get a lot of torque steer from this thing, and you'll actually chirp the tires. Like, I unknowingly chirped the tires. I was turning right on red and hit the gas to get out ahead of traffic, and tires squealed. Here, I'm coming up on a red light and I'll be able to show you here. All right, here we go. Yep, torque steer. Oh yeah, someone's in front of me, so I can't really go all out, but tires spin, torque steer. You wouldn't get that in an MDX. You wouldn't get that in an Aviator. You wouldn't get that in, hell, a Kia Telluride. Weird little concessions that you have to make if you want to drive this car. Power delivery's fine. I was on a rough road, and I thought that the suspension was a little bit rougher than what you want out of a luxury SUV. As far as being a three-row family SUV goes, this thing is fine. It offers most of what you want. Problem is that it doesn't really give you any more than what you want. It doesn't give you any more than your basic expectations from a three-row SUV. And I think that just kind of kills it for me. And then you look at the fact that it's $71,000. I sat down in this vehicle, a little exercise I like to do particularly for vehicles that I'm not really familiar with. I like to sit down, drive it, maybe 10, 15 miles, and then take a guess as to what the sticker price is. And my guess for this was $60,000. And yeah, I was off by over $11,000. Now, with most GM vehicles, you'd probably get some financial incentives on the hood if you bought this thing. So, expect to get maybe $5,000 off. I don't feel like that's enough, though. Another weird thing, Cadillac has its Super Cruise semi-autonomous technology that's actually really good. It's probably one of the biggest things Cadillac has going for it these days, because frankly, Cadillac doesn't have that much going for it currently. But Cadillac has Super Cruise. They have it at their disposal. It was offered on the Ct6. It was highly, highly regarded, and yet can't get it on the Xt6 here. So what's that about? And again, I think it's because this vehicle was kind of cobbled together at the last second using GM's front-wheel drive SUV platform, when in reality, back a few years ago when Cadillac was being run by Johan de Nysschen, who had been at Audi and had been at Infiniti, his plan was for this vehicle to ride on the Omega platform, which would have made it a better competitor with the Lincoln Aviator, because Omega platform's rear-wheel drive would have been able to fit the Blackwing V8 under the hood, and it would have made for a pretty formidable three-row crossover. But with the Omega platform being scrapped, GM just kind of threw together a three-row Cadillac crossover using the same platform that underpins the Traverse, and as a result, you kind of get an economy SUV dressed up as a luxury SUV, and it doesn't work to me. All right, so to wrap up the XT6 here, this feels more like a mainstream economy SUV with luxury car exterior styling and an attempt at luxury car interior styling than it does a proper luxury SUV. I don't see the value at $71,000. I don't see the value at $61,000. I tested a Kia Telluride, and fully loaded, that vehicle cost just over, I think, $47,000. And hands down, it was a better product than the XT6. You even get a better warranty with the Kia than you do the Cadillac. And keep in mind, luxury cars come with a better warranty than mainstream economy cars, but Kia and Hyundai both offer killer warranties that are the best in segment. Can't remember the terms off the top of my head, but better than anything you get from any luxury automaker even. So yeah, I think the Kia Telluride has this thing beat hands down before even getting into the luxury competition like the Acura MDX, Lincoln Aviator, BMW, Mercedes. No question, those are nicer than this. So yeah, kind of a disappointing product. I think it's fine. It's fine. I think it's a decent all-around SUV, but then when General Motors suggests you pay $71,000 for this, no way. That's a little offensive, I think. So, GM builds good vehicles, generally good vehicles. There's nothing inherently, kind of is some things wrong with this vehicle, but it works. It would work for most families. It's just that the pricing and the suggestion that this is a premium luxury vehicle are off to me. So I think that about covers it. XT6, kind of a weird product. Doesn't quite live up to expectations. I think we'll just leave it at that. So, thank you for watching.